So, welcome to the National Landlords Investment Show, 5th expert panel debate. I'm hoping that it's going to be a very interesting one with lots of questions posed directly from you to our expert panel. National Landlord Investment Show have actually been in existence, I think, for sort of 5.5 years. And I have to say, as long as I've been speaking on the property circuit, I've never seen the talent of expertise that is just in the exhibition hall, on stage, everywhere today. So I'm really hoping that you are going to, make use of that for the whole day. So before we begin, and before I introduce you to our panel, I just want to get a few sort of housekeeping rules in order. First of all, can I have sort of everyone to sort of silence their phone or turn off your phone, whatever is good for you. If you have a question, I do have 2 people with mics that will shortly appear. Is one of them in the room already with me? No, but they will be coming shortly. So if you have a question, if you can raise your hand, and then the mic will come to you. Don't speak without the mic, please. So let's get on with some introductions, our panel for today. So first of all, and to my left, we have Paul Mahoney, who is the founder and managing director of Nova Financial Group. You've probably actually seen some feedback forms on your chairs as you came in. You've all got them? I'd highly recommend that you fill those in. There are going to be 2 representatives either side of doors that you exit, because you could win... What is that? Is it an iPad Air?
6th generation iPad.
6th generation iPad. When are you doing the draw?
At the end of the day. So everyone fills in the forms and either returns them to my colleagues at the doors or to our stand, which is just the entry. We'll go in the draw and we'll draw the name out of the hat at the end of the day. So it's a very few pounds worth of iPad.
So it's worth filling out that form. And thank you for being our sponsors of today's debate. Thank you, Nova Financial. The next person that we have is Sarah Davidson. Sarah is a well-renowned journalist. She's an editor and reporter at the MailOnline, and she writes for This Is Money. She writes a lot on buy-to-let and also pensions, and she very much writes with the consumers in mind. They have 6 million users per month. I'm sure that you've all read them at some point. Tony Gimple, well, you've been on the panel 3 times? Yeah, it's your 3rd time. So Tony Gimple, Less Tax for Landlords, he's one of the co-owners, with Section 24 being as topical as it was so many years ago. Tony's here to answer those questions and many more. Next to Tony, we have got Steve Harriott, who basically is the Chief Executive of Tenancy Deposit Scheme. They have 100,000 landlords as members. They have about 1.5 million properties, and he's also the current Director of Safe Deposits in Scotland. So he's going to be telling us how we need to register our deposits properly and to give us loads and loads of tips. And last but definitely not least is Gavin Seaholm. He's Head of Sales for Commercial Property Business within Shawbrook Bank. So ladies and gentlemen, if we can show true gratitude to our panel by welcoming them. I'm going to kick off with a question then that was sent over to me, which I'm going to actually start with Sarah. Okay. So the question is, with all the tax and mortgage changes seen over the past few years, is it still worth getting into buy-to-let as a new investor?
So that's the million-dollar question, really, isn't it? I think it depends, is the answer. It depends how you do it. So rewind the clock 10 years, getting into buy-to-let, anyone was doing it, everyone was doing it, and it was possible to make money because property values went up. Now, it's not that simple. There are a lot of onerous tax changes that have come in the past couple of years. It's more expensive to get in, house prices are more subdued at the moment, and it's tougher to get mortgage finance. So I think that there are still opportunities in the market. You just need to be smarter about where you're looking geographically, what type of property you're looking at, and what and how you approach it, essentially. So yes, it is still worth getting into it, but it's definitely worth doing a lot more research and making sure that your numbers add up before you start.
If one was trying to be smarter, what type of area then would they be looking? And let's take London, because we're here in London. What would be a good area in London, and what type of property?
Well, tricky. I think most people agree that London doesn't have as many opportunities as other big cities in the country. So what we're seeing is a lot of landlords move out of London and into cities like Birmingham, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester, because their capital values are lower, and so you are likely to make a bigger return. Also, your yield is going to be better because the capital outlay will be lower. But there are still opportunities in London. I think what we're seeing here is people look at HMOs, multi-lets, semi-commercial stuff, and also adding value ahead of letting out, so buying a property that maybe isn't mortgageable using short-term finance, say it's not got a bathroom or it's not up to standards, then improving it over the short term and then putting it, refinancing onto buy-to-let and then making money that way. I don't know if the others would agree.
Oh, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I agree. London's a tough market at the moment due to a number of factors. Changes with regards to mortgage serviceability, around actually being able to generate the yield to borrow a decent amount. In my opinion, the major benefit of property investment is the borrowings. So when you can only borrow sort of 50-60% on higher value, lower yielding assets, it really does take away a lot of the benefit. And I would say, why would you invest in London at the moment when you can invest elsewhere? We certainly encourage people to be very commercially minded and unemotional when it comes to investing. And I completely agree with what Sarah said, so far as places like Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, there's just a lot more going for those cities from a capital growth and rental yield perspective, and just general fundamentals like infrastructure spending, population growth, economic growth. All of those things are a lot more positive in those cities for the short to mid-term at least when compared to London.
So both of you seem to be implying that London's a little bit exhausted now with buy-to-let.
It's had a very good run. We're about 80% above the 2007 peak property prices in London. All markets are cyclical, so you can't expect prices to continue to go up indefinitely. When you compare that to the other cities, for example, they're nowhere near that level. So, in my opinion, there's a lot more value to be had.
Okay. Gavin, do you add anything to that?
Yeah, I agree with guys. We've seen that shift from an energy perspective. We're now recently quite level. It sort of quantifies that. Well, people are chasing that yield. London is suffering from that. House prices. Depends on the strategy of the investor as well. If your strategy is for appreciation and growth of an asset, then maybe stick within the M25 and ride it out for a bit longer. But if your business model with the changes that are at the moment is more about yield, then you'll probably be better off looking further afield in the cities that guys mentioned as well, especially.
Right. Does anybody in the audience has anybody bought recently in London? When I say recently, some point this year, or even last year, a year. 2 people. So the next question, Tony, this is going to start with you. Should landlords actually fear a hard Brexit, Corbyn at number 10, or a continued attack on landlords by a Tory Chancellor?
The answer is yes to all 3 questions. Pretty loud. Let's have a look at some perspective. Landlords are a visible, vibrant, diverse market who contribute a great deal of money to the economy and provide, in fact, are now probably the largest social landlords in the country. But they're also politically inconvenient in so many ways. shows up, deficits in the state, it's easy to divide it left and right. Tenants, landlords, there's always a conflict, and government of any colour needs revenue. We're an aging population. National insurance will never insure. The money's got to come from somewhere. But the government will only attack a successful sector, a regulated successful sector. Tax is the price we have to pay to be able to talk about tax. So regardless of your politics, the one thing that all governments need is business. Because business generates revenue, it keeps the economy going, and has done for time in the world. And if you're running a professional property business, working within the system, acting like any other business does, then whoever's in power, there'll be more ups and downs, there'll be short-term pain when the pendulum swings the other way, as it consistently does in UK politics. Brexit, specifically, it's here, whichever, there isn't going to be another people's vote, referendum, plebiscite, whatever you want to call it. Whether it's a hard Brexit, whether it's a soft Brexit, people still want to live here. Just look at the audience. So in or out, demand will exceed supply. So whether it's London or the north or the east or wherever, people want to be here right out the storm. So is there anything to fear? Only if you accept we all suffer from the same accident as became landlords. If you're like any other business, making the right investment decisions for the right reasons, government needs businesses. And well-run, well-regulated sectors are profitable and sustainable all round. In other words, it's going to be what it be, work for the system, suck it up, you'll come out the other end if you're not too heavily geared and you're not making too many losses.
Right. I want to just ask you to explain something, because you use that word professional property business. In a nutshell, Tony, what exactly do you mean?
Okay.
Just in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, 95% of businesses are 95% the same. You take an intellectual property, or a commodity, or a sum of capital, add value to it, and hopefully sell it for little bad, costing the whole process. You do everything that any other business would. An exhibition hall, show organiser, law firm, accountant, product shop, newspaper. Take a sum of capital which you want to return and treat it the same way as if you were investing it in any other commodity or service. Behave like a business, and it is a professional property business. Not just somebody who's inherited 2 or 3 properties. It's just looking to get a few quid in rent by way of pension, and it's the true accidental landlord. You're a business.
Okay, so are you saying the days of the accidental landlords are coming to an end, or have they ended?
It's going to be hard now to grow by accident. You may start that way, you will inherit a property, or shack up together, have a spare property, have some spare money lying on the property because you can. If you're accidental landlords won't go out, but you have to treat it as just a small savings bank, as opposed to a professional property business, which is going to be your pension and the capital value will continue after you've gone. They'll still be there,
Okay.
but it'll be harder to bridge the gap between just having 1 or 2 properties and being a proper recognised business, being fully sustainable.
Okay. Gavin, did you want to say anything to that?
Yeah, I think Tony's right. I mean, the PRA sets out specialist underwriting standards now for all banks and investors. So if you own 4 or more properties, you are classed as a professional landlord. We've seen an increase in intercompany borrowing. Well, we've always done it, but recently I think we're running into sort of late 80% now on new applications for intercompany. So you can see that the sector is either already or is getting more professional. Like Tony said, the government want that. They can see it then. You know, they can keep an eye on it a bit more. It's a bit more visible as limited companies as a business. But yeah, I echo what Tony said. If you create the right platform and the right investment strategy and treat it like a business, then you should be able to ride out the storms that have been put. You know, survive the stamp duty, we've survived in the tax changes that have started to be implemented and so on. So I think, yeah, there's obviously, I think there's still light at the end of the tunnel, but I do think that smaller landlord will probably have to reevaluate, and even first-time landlords, people looking to invest in it, is it the right type of investment going forward, or one or two? It's not for me to answer, but...
So before I bring in Sarah, Steve, have you got a point?
Well, yeah, so I was just going to make the point that we see a lot of issues that happen in the tenancy, they come to the tenancy deposit scheme. And I think there is a difference between the professional landlords who knows what they're doing and comes to events like this and has access to good advice, and those accidental landlords who, there's a lot of work involved, I think, in being a landlord to get it right, because one of the issues at the moment is there's 150 odd different rules, regulations that landlords have to comply with, each of which can trap the unwary, and we do see evidence of that. And across the UK now, you're getting a big divergence in terms of how the private sector operates. So the regulations in Scotland are different to those in Wales, and now different to those in England and Northern Ireland. So those landlords who are operating across borders have that added dimension. So I think you can be a landlord, you can be an accidental landlord, you can manage a very small portfolio. But I think, from my experience, people need to be wary about that. And if they're going to do it, they need to invest the time and effort in making sure they get this stuff right.
Right. Sarah, if we look at statistics, in the private renting sector, most of the landlords are landlords who have one or two properties. So what is your take on what we're saying here?
I think you have to look at a sort of big picture and understand what the government is trying to do. So what we've seen over the past nearly 3 years is the addition of 3% surcharge on stamp duty when you're buying buy-to-let. We've seen the Section 24 changes, reduction of tax relief on mortgage interest, which is still ongoing, and that's still, I think we're really still to see that impact of that actually on the sector. I don't think we've really seen that yet, with the delay in filing tax return. Not to mention we've not hit the worst of it yet. Then we've had all the mortgage changes, as already mentioned, in terms of making affordability tougher, and portfolio rules for landlords with 4 or more properties. We just had the budget last week, and Hammond announced another change, again, this time for accidental landlords, so reducing the allowance, the capital gains relief on your private residence. So if you've moved out of your house because you can't sell it and you've bought a new one and then you want to let it out, or for example, if you're in a couple and you've both got your own flat and you live together and you think, well, rather than selling one of them, let's just let it out. That type of landlord is not going to get the same relief that they did previously. And I think all of that is because the government is very deliberately trying to move the private rented sector away from individual landlords and towards more professional outfits and institutional money. And absolutely, they are encouraging pension funds to get involved with this. We've seen companies like Legal & General, among others, put huge amounts of money into the property sector and providing, huge blocks, student housing in these cities further north. So I think the whole dynamic of the market is changing, and the tax environment and the financial environment imposed by the Bank of England is designed to do that. So it's going to be much harder to become an accidental landlord. The flip side to that is that for those people who have become accidental landlords, they didn't do it on purpose, so they're going to suffer, actually, financially. I'm trying to sell my flat at the moment, and I haven't had a single viewing in 2 months. And that is a reflection of Brexit and people just thinking, you know what, I'm just going to hold on. So I'm going to get hit by all of those changes, and that's not because I've made a decision to become a landlord. That's because I'm at the mercy of the property market and the way that it is playing out at the moment. So I think there's always 2 sides to every story, but ultimately the direction of travel is towards the professional And if you want to continue in buy-to-let and make a success of it, then you have to understand the game and play that game, rather than thinking that you can just jump in.
Just to comment on that, with accidental landlords, or people who refer to as smaller landlords, one or two properties here and there, in my opinion, there's absolutely no reason why that person can't become a professional landlord, can't start to approach things from a much more of a business approach or with a business sense. And I think the key to that is seeking advice from specialists in various areas like property selection, tax, all especially to do with all the recent changes, to see how that's going to affect you. If you are a landlord and you haven't sought advice on how Section 24 is going to affect you, you're mad. There's no point waiting until you do your tax return. You need to know how that's going to affect your bottom line. So if you do fit into that category, so probably quite a few people in this room probably do, of either accidental landlords or smaller landlords where there are quite a few properties here and there on the side, is to start to look at things much more from a professional standpoint and actually putting in place a business plan and a strategy for what you really want to achieve in property. Focusing more on the end goals as opposed to just buying properties here and there and sort of hoping for a positive outcome.
Can I just have a show of hands from the audience? How many of you have less than 4 properties? I just want to get a feel for those landlords that, they refer to as professional. It's not a nice term, but we know what they mean. What would you advise somebody? Let me make up a scenario. Paul, this is to you. You've got a couple, they've come together, they each have their own homes, they can't rent it, they can't sell it because of the market, so they're going to now rent it. They've managed to buy something else. What would you give them? Some advice?
I think it very much depends on the property they're left with. But my approach to looking at property is very, very unemotional. Almost a box that generates you money. You should be investing in property because you like property. You should be investing in property to make money. That's what it's all about. Investing is businesses about making money. So if that property stacks up as an investment, great. I don't like encouraging people to sell properties because it's a very expensive way of releasing resources. You pay capital gains tax, agent fees, a whole range of things. But you need to assess that property you're left with on the basis of an investment. Is it going to yield well? Is it going to grow in value? If not, how much cash or equity do you have in that asset? And then maybe it is a better option to get rid of it, even if you're going to take a loss. Because if you're struggling to sell a property, that's a good indication it's overpriced. And that you might think, oh, I'll hold on for it to come back, but that's not the market at that point in time. So a good question to ask yourself at that point is, let's say you've got 200 grand equity in that property. If I had that 200 grand in my bank, would I buy that property? And the answer is usually no, and therefore you should probably sell it.
So that's a good question. Any questions from the audience? Hands up, anyone? This gentleman here right at the back, please. And then I'm going to have you, sir, afterwards. Just make your question brief.
Yeah, with all the changes, I just wanted to raise whether the Airbnb short rental market is a place for landlords starting towards more.
So basically the question was, in case you didn't hear that, with all the changes, should landlords be going more to Airbnb? Who wants to take that from the panel?
I'll pick it up. So
Gary,
it's quite a hot topic at the moment,
Yeah.
so we're seeing a lot of it as well. It's about 2 things really: funding, who can fund it, what lenders have got an appetite out there to fund it, banks alike, and secondly as well is getting the right planning and things like that as well. So it's not just a quick high yielding chasing sort of we'll do it. There's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of properties. The local authorities are looking at under the spotlight a bit. Is it actually hampering the private rental sector because more and more people are going down this route? Or you flip it the other way and go, well actually is it giving hotels a bit of a shake-up because they're obviously it's all done by what consumers want as well. So there's 2 sides to it. It's definitely an area where I see a lot of property investors talking about it daily. I just think there's a lack of funding at the moment in that space, or maybe lenders need to be a bit more relaxed about it. Because I think if an investor is going to look at investing at such an early time, maybe you need to sweat that asset and make it work. Now, how a lender's going to look at the income from that. Are they going to default position as a sort of an AST position, or are they going to look at it as a business offering and working on the accounts or something like that? So that's the sort of area which is a bit great for investors in my eyes, really.
Is there any funding out there for Airbnb at the moment? If any, there is there?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is. I wouldn't say it's vast. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's vast, but I would say there's probably a handful at the moment vendors that are doing it. But again, it's how they approach it. Would they look at it as a trading business, or would they look at it as purely as an investment?
Right. Okay. So your question, please.
Can I just add one thing to that Airbnb issue?
Please, Sarah.
I would just say, I think there's been a lot said about, how to make money in the current buy-to-let environment, and there's always a temptation to sort of jump on the next bandwagon. And holiday lets, because they are exempt from the tax relief changes, so you can still claim your full tax relief on your mortgage interest if you're doing a holiday let, have sort of been heralded as this kind of like, oh, this is the answer, this is what I'm going to do next. And I think that what you have to understand if you're going to go into that is that that's a very different market. It brings with it a whole load of very different risks. The management of that property is much more labour intensive. The risk of void is much higher. The cost of the mortgage will be higher to reflect both of those things. So it depends on what type of business you want to run and if you've got the infrastructure in place to manage that. So on the one side it might look better because you get the tax relief, but on the other your costs might go up, and so you might actually not see any benefit. So I would just make that clear before people think that this is the answer to the problem that we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah, and also didn't Sadiq Khan bring in a regulation that in London you can't rent your property in Airbnb? Yeah.
So that pretty much puts the kibosh on that city centre top, so yeah, that's exactly it.
I'll bring the mic to you, thank you. In a moment. Sorry, Sarah.
I would just say that I think that's a really good point, that actually what we're seeing is a lot of change. Barely 6 months goes by without the government announcing another change. And if this is seen as a loophole, it will be closed. So while it might be plausible today, it might not be plausible in 18 months. So, just bear that in mind.
You go to this gentleman here who's been waiting.
Government is tackling looking into it. This is something thing, and now looking into council tax to actually make it more like they're looking into charging the landlord business rates. So it might actually be a really bad business decision to go into holiday. So I just wanted to add that because people, like I said, you just jump in, you don't realise the consequences of what you get into and the costs that will come up. That's your point.
Another thing to consider, because Sarah's exactly right, we've had a lot of inquiry around holiday lets as the easy solution to the current market. And because of the restrictions with lending, because the rates are likely quite high and there's much fewer lenders, and usually the loan to value is much lower as well. Another thing you need to consider is the actual return on your cash in that type of investment, because if the rates are much higher and you're putting in a lot more cash, even though the yield might be higher on the asset value, the yield on your equity could be actually lower. Because when you buy to let, you can borrow at 2 or 3% at 75% loan to values. Even with a 7 or 8% yield on that asset, you can be getting 10, 12% plus on your cash. So just because when you're looking at an investment, it's very important to consider the actual return on your equity, not just the return on the asset value.
Let's talk about section 24 for a bit. Tony, I'm going to start with you. What's been the impact so far? First of all, before you answer, does everybody in the room understand when I say section 24? Do you know what that means? Please don't be afraid to raise your hand if you don't know. It's fine. We're a family here. Everything stays in this room. I'm glad that somebody was honest. Thank you very much, I appreciate that. Tony, just explain what it is in a nutshell, its impact, and I want to just go through the panel quickly because I've got lots more other questions.
Okay, so section 24 is the capping of all interest relief against tax. Comes fully into effect 2021, and the net is you will only get basic rate relief against your mortgage interest payments. You can easily throw a basic rate taxpayer into higher rate into advance rate. And when you enter a tax escalator effect, i.e. paying tax in advance, plus the tighter lending rules, the net effect will be to restrict the amount of property you can own, make a profit from, and borrow money for. It's going to hurt. In fact, by June next year, I'm 60 at that point, a lot of landlords will see their tax bills exceed their profit for the year. And that is a serious problem. By the time we get to 2021, a lot of you in this room will have made a decision that, regardless of what I do, stay as I am, it's partnerships, it's limited companies, it's just not worth your salt. The other thing I would say before you go to the panel is the theme throughout everything this morning has been a business. This is not an investment, it's not a lifestyle. It's a business like any other. You can trade and run this business. You get finance as a business, you get tax as a business, you get all the benefits that businesses bring to the economy. Work through the system, seek advice, don't panic. Look at the numbers, make sure you've got the right capital, the right access, the right yields. If you avoid selling an otherwise income-producing asset, then avoid it, because it will always cost you more in the end, particularly in this market.
Can I put you on the spot for a moment, Tony, and say that you can't do it if you can't, because I totally understand that. But you made a statement that most of the landlords in this room by 2021, that their tax bill was going to exceed. Give me some figures so the audience can get a sense of what we're looking at. So a person who's earning X, that's got a property or properties that are generating Y, just a quick feel. If you can, because I know I put you on the spot, and I know you're doing the seminar, aren't you?
I am, and it's difficult because it depends on their loans values, what's what we're getting from POAE, other businesses, and so on. But a typical example, we've seen somebody with 75% gearing, who's earning about 250,000 a year in total, 100,000 mortgages, about 40,000 of other expenses. In 2021, their profit would be near enough wiped out by the tax bill, payments in advance, and so on. It's forced them well into advance rate.
Wow.
That's going to be hard to recover from.
Gabby, section 24 and the impact.
Yeah,
Tips for landlords, solutions.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you've got to avoid this ostrich scenario. I sit on a lot of panels, I go to a lot of events, and I think in the UK at the moment, you've got 76% of mortgages arranged by an intermediary or a broker. So probably 3/4 of this room will be using a broker or an intermediary firm to help them with that. I think some of these guys would need a bit more education first as well, because they're the ones giving the advice in the mortgage process. So my advice would be make sure you get the right power team around you. I always say it all the time. You look at your legacy portfolio, you can look at your portfolio going forward if you want to continue to grow your strategy. So is it in the right setup, like Tony said, business, etc. It needs to be run as a business, but it's definitely here. It's not going anywhere. It's just a case of really understanding how fundamental is going to affect you going forward. But my advice is to seek specialist advice. Before I'm a landlord myself, so I took my short hat off. It's concerning for me as well, and I've pretty much just had an accountant every year doing my return, not really sort of borderline required like bookkeeper, really doing my stuff. Now I think it's going to change, and you need to get that specialist tax advice, and that would be the part. And then, again, from mortgage advice all the way through to tax, create that power team. That's what I'm going to be doing, so that's the advice I would do on this, and not more it either.
Fabulous. Paul, what can you do for us at Nova?
Well, I think it's extremely important when you're looking to achieve an end goal that you have a strategy in place for doing it. A lot of people go about, and I think especially property, because in the past it's been a very DIY activity. There's been lots of changes recently that have been mentioned. And the difference between the right choice and the wrong choice, or the right strategy and the wrong strategy, specific for you, is massive. So have the end goal in mind. Firstly, understand your situation, understand what your goals are, what it is you're working toward, put in place a strategy for doing it, and then reverse engineer that toward your actual purchasing decisions. And that's exactly what we do at Nova. So we help people make better decisions for their situation, doing all the research and due diligence, providing the resource to them to enable them to make better decisions and to better work toward their goals. So that's really what the feedback form is all about that you guys have. Obviously give feedback on the panel, but then we're offering a promotion for the show where we're waiving our advisory fees. So essentially our advice to you, if there is a potential for us to help, would be completely free of charge. So it's definitely worth a couple of minutes of your time to see whether we might be able to help.
Okay.
And we're not.
Sarah, just briefly before I go on to some questions that I'm dying to ask Steve. So, is it a limited company that is best for all or not?
I think this is a really key thing. So we've talked about the changes, but we've not talked about where they apply and how they apply. So these Section 24 applies to landlords who own property in their own name. It does not apply to property that is owned within the structure of a limited company. Yet, when this first was announced, everybody said, oh, the quick fix, just transfer all your property into a limited company. That's not a good idea. I mean, then you're going to incur capital gains tax, you're going to have to pay stamp duty at the higher rate to repurchase your property in a limited company. There is still tax to pay, it's just a different type of tax. The other thing to say is that really critically, the reason that it's going to tip a lot of private landlords who own property in their own name into a higher tax bracket is because not only is there a reduction in the amount of tax relief that you can claim, it's also switching from a relief to a tax credit, which means that you're going to be taxed at the moment, and previously you were taxed on your profit only, so you just took all your costs off and then you paid tax on the profit with that relief added. But now you're going to have to pay tax on your entire income, so absolutely everything. So the bill is not, the tax relief is coming down, but the bill is also going up for other reasons. So I don't think that necessarily switching from one into another, if you're already in it, is the answer. If you're making a new purchase, absolutely look at a limited company. If you have an existing portfolio, then rebalancing that is going to be a priority, looking at where the yields are lowest. Maybe if you've seen a lot of capital uplift and the yield is really low, that you're not going to be making a lot of profit on that. Probably it will get wiped out. It might be worth selling that, bringing everything down, and sort of re-tipping the scales. But I think, as Paul said, that is very much down to the individual and your individual circumstances, and 100% speak to a specialist, and not just a broker, but a broker who knows and understands professional buy-to-let. There are a lot of mortgage brokers out there who do predominantly resi stuff and will do the odd buy-to-let maybe one a month, and they've been used to doing the DIY stuff. They are not going to know how to help you in the same way as a broker who specialises in buy-to-let and does it every single day, day in, day out. They also won't have access to the same lenders who have the same flexibility, so that is why it's really critical to get that specialist advice.
Thank you. Okay, I don't know about you landlords, but we are a resilient bunch though, aren't we? Because it's been regulation after regulation since like 2004. What was your question? Yes, this gentleman here in the beige. Just a brief answer.
Question for Tony. You mentioned in your example the guy was 75% geared. What level of gearing would you recommend to reduce the hurt?
You can't answer that question because there are so many other factors. But typically, 60% loan to value, 7-8% yield. Anybody in business would be very happy with that, and the tax changes probably won't have a great deal of effect. The key point is how things are moving forward. It's not about gearing, some of our other properties is OFL, X or Y in isolation. The only way to understand your situation and to know what to do is you have to look at it in the round.
So specialist advice is basically what one needs to be able to do.
Yeah.
And definitely if you're buying. Okay, Steve, I want to turn the tables on you for a moment. Deposits. What's going to be the impact of the tenant's fee ban, do you think, on deposits?
Well, can I take a show of hands? How many people here take a deposit? Okay, so most people actually. So the tenant fee ban in England is coming in at the beginning of April, almost certainly. And I think that there are a few changes that landlords need to be aware of. So probably from April, the deposit is going to be capped. So the most deposit you can take will be 6 weeks rent. In fact, I think in our experience, most landlords take about 4 to 6 weeks anyway, so that's not a major issue. But there are issues around pets, for example. So at the moment, if a landlord agrees to let the tenant have a pet, often you'll see a pet deposit added on top of the usual deposit. Well, that won't be allowed. Effectively, you've got that 6 week cap. So I guess most landlords in those circumstances are probably going to increase the rent if a pet's going to be coming into to the property. There are some restrictions on holding deposits, so essentially I think you can take a week's rent as a holding deposit, and there are very limited circumstances in which that the landlord can retain the part of that holding deposit if for whatever reason the tenant falls out. And I think the big issue that I think is coming up, particularly for those of you that are using agents, is that is this tenant fee ban, where essentially in almost all circumstances tenants won't be able to be charged a fee for some of the stuff that's currently done by agents or landlords to take up tenancy. So that's likely to change some of the business models out there. There is, however, a provision for what is called in the bill default fees. So if a tenant, for example, loses a key and you have to provide a replacement key, you can charge for that. But you have to make sure you refer to that in the tenancy agreement. And you also have to provide evidence to the landlord that the price of that key replacement was reasonable. And the guidance at the moment talks about providing estimates and quotations and invoices. So these are things that I think, in particular on the default fee issue, that you as landlords, you're well advised I think to talk to your lawyers about the form of tenancy agreement you might want to use from April next year. Because I think the current tenancy agreements are usually silent on these sorts of issues. And if you want to be able to charge fees to tenants for a default they have under the tenancy agreement, you've got to make sure that the wording in the tenancy agreement is explicit. So I think there's going to be some changes. And again, we talked earlier, didn't we, at the beginning, about the pitfalls that the uninitiated can fall into. And I do think this is one of those as well, because if you charge a default fee to a tenant and it's deemed to be unreasonable, you then have issues around using Section 21 for possession. So I think get advice as the bill finalises its stages through Parliament, and the government are going to issue guidance to landlords about how that tenant fee ban applies in the new to
Right, okay. Steve, what would be your top tips for landlords? Give me your top 3.
My top tips around this particular area is, if you take a deposit, make sure you protect that within 30 days of receiving it. Make sure you issue the prescribed information. Make sure your tenancy agreement is really explicit about what you want the tenant to do and how the deposit can be used. And my final advice is always make sure you've got a decent inventory and schedule of condition at the beginning of tenancy and a matching checkout at the end.
If a tenant has damaged some property, outside of those 3 tips that you've given us, how can a landlord try to convince the adjudication panel that the tenant is in wrong?
I think it's relatively straightforward, if I'm honest. I think if you've done an inventory and you've got a check out at the end that shows quite clearly that something has been damaged, that's the first point. If you're claiming for a loss, then it's important that any estimate you provide or invoice you provide is suitably detailed, so it's pretty clear that you suffered a loss as a landlord and here's the price that's attached to it. And this whole issue of fair wear and tear needs to be taken account of. So clearly, if a carpet has been damaged, it's only been out for 6 months, you're likely to get much more back from that than if it was there for 10 years and effectively had reached the end of its useful life.
Right, okay. Any questions from any? Your hand went up very quickly. Is this about deposits? Is it about deposits? Okay. Just make it brief.
Okay, well, Steve, Gavin, rather, you mentioned this question of if you've got more than one property, you're a professional. Is there some sort of legislation that's against you? You know, what disadvantage is there in being a professional? Do you get anything extra, or do you lose by being a professional?
Yeah, so
could you define what it is?
Well, I think the PRA has set out a standard for an underwriting standard for lenders and mortgage providers that if you own 4 or more mortgage properties, you would require a specialist underwriter. And therefore, that would involve things like creating a business plan, cash flow forecasts, providing a full up-to-date, detailed portfolio schedule. And that's where a lender would sit and look at that. And that's where they sort of almost are classed in that bucket of professional landlord.
So this only applies to mortgages then?
Sorry?
It only applies if you're borrowing money, are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's only mortgage properties that underwriting would come into play. If you don't have any, if you're unencumbered, for example, then it won't be actual.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Question for Steve. You mentioned changes in April 19 coming up with deposits. Now, where you've got deposits in excess of 6 weeks, are the landlords required to reduce that deposit or wait till the end of the tenancy?
So, as under the current guidance, it's going to say that this legislation change is not retrospective. So, if you've got a deposit greater than that value, then you can retain that deposit at that level. I think the only caveat is going to be if the tenancy, if you issue a new fixed-term tenancy, then that deposit will need to come down to the 6-week cap. In other circumstances, the deposit can continue at that higher level until the tenancy ends.
Okay. I have a question. What's going to be next on the government's horizon? We know that they're thinking about 3-year tenancy. What else? I'm going to start with you, Paul, and I'm going to go that way, and then I've got a question each.
Well, I think Brexit's going to take a longer time, isn't it? We've done a lot of changes in property lately. I think we hopefully we'll just sort of slink away into the darkness and they'll leave us alone. But yeah, there's been lots of change. I think they'd be mad to make any further changes. There's been speculation about stamp duty premium being reduced in that actually it's holding them back from raising revenue, whereas previously they were trying to raise revenue through it. Less people are buying because of it. So that's, they've actually sort of shot themselves in the foot a little bit there. So potentially that would be changed. We spoke about maybe Labour getting into the government, and who knows what would happen then. But hopefully all the Brexit changes are going to take up all of their time, and they'll just leave landlords to get on with their business.
For a while. Sarah?
I think it depends on who's in government. As Paul mentioned, I think Jeremy Corbyn has been quite vocal about being very anti-landlord. So were Labour to get in, I would expect there to be more onerous rules applied in the form of longer term tenancies and also rent caps. I've already actually seen that in Scotland under the SNP. So far, it doesn't look like it's made too much of a difference, but they've not actually imposed those rental caps. They've got the legislation in place to enable the government to do that, should they wish to. That's the sort of the Labour scenario. I think if we see the Tories hang on by the skin of their teeth and we get through Brexit, which I'm sure we will, one way or another, Now, I think that probably what we'll see, if anything, is a kind of closing down of those loopholes. So where you see a kind of, you know, they implement a tax change, and then you see a whole load of landlords go over here, and mortgage brokers start promoting this thing over here, they'll probably start to clamp down on that, but it will be more incremental, because I think fundamentally you need to keep in mind what their objective is, and it is to rebalance the division of housing ownership in this country. So,
Tony, briefly. Changes?
In the next couple of years, not very many, Brexit, etc., has taken up all the political time in the world. Once Section 24 is fully implemented, so 2021, the government will have lost a shed load of revenue on the surface by people moving into limited companies to get over Section 24. And if you're running, if you own buy-to-let in a limited company, it's going to be treated as an investment business. And almost certainly, the Chancellor of the day will say relief is not available for limited companies owning buy-to-let properties. It's an easy target, claws back a shed load of money, and will help them to further stigmatise landlords.
Before I get to speak, by a show of hands with the audience, who's thinking about exiting the... You? Just why? What the reason is for? Just reason why?
It's a tax and the legislation coming into the market, and the fact that lenders are not interested in landlords who've got more than 10 mortgage properties. So I've been, was an accidental landlord starting in '92, built a large portfolio, and if there was no capital gains tax, or not at 28%, I would sell tomorrow. But we have to plan an exit strategy now.
Right.
Can I just go to that?
Who's saying that, Gavin?
Yeah, it's 10 or more property, or 10, and that's the cap. I think you'll find that there's a lot more lenders and mortgage providers out there that are more than happy to look at larger portfolios, be it either refinance or continue to help people on their purchase journey, not just the short, but again in the wider market now. There seems to be this sort of underlying 10 property mindset, whereas, yeah, probably some of the more what we would call high street or vanilla lenders will probably have that cap, say your TMWs and so on, but even Virgin Money alike, but even they're moving into an area of lending to limited companies and so on. They're actually looking at lending, as well as a specialist, more commercial lenders to actually help people grow and move forward, and I'm sure Paul probably agree with that as well. There's a lot more liquidity in the market than ever, and there's a lot more opportunity for landlords to take advantage of that, to grow, rather than such as the CGT, for example, and the plan to exit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people go wrong by speaking with the bank they've dealt with for 20 years and sort of stick to their, I'm not saying this is the case, but a lot of people do stick with their current bank or stick with their current broker who may not be a specialist and sort of take their word as gospel. There's over 1,000 buy-to-let products on the market now, and over half of them are only available to brokers, and a lot of them are only available to specialist brokers. So it does make sense to deal with a specialist, or even a few specialists, to get a broader range of understanding of the market.
I think it's the choice of mortgages. If the choice of mortgages are available to you, the rates, whereas somebody with one or two properties can maybe get a mortgage at 1 or 2%. There's not much choice under 3% for portfolio loans. TMW will do it, but if you're remortgaging them, you've got huge fees, like £2,000 to remortgage, or not such an attractive rate.
You need to come and see Nova's stand and Shawbrook's stand afterwards. I think that would be good. Impact of 3-year tenancies. Gavin?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been talked about. I think there's the question first of all was about the change in government. I think all the guys are pretty set that hopefully it just let alone the Brexit does take all the energy. I think from a bank's perspective, it would probably be not a bad thing. I think it is obviously protects tenants, so it gives a bit more longevity for looking at what a property can yield on a longer term basis. I just think I think banks and lenders are probably going to be under the spotlight a little bit more going forward with regards to regulation. It is an unregulated market, buy-to-let.
34 billion, don't quote me around about that, will be lent this year just purely on buy-to-let and residential, and that's not including some figures that are put in. So it's quite a large market, and that's still unregulated, so that would probably be what I would be focusing on as a bank. We look at how the regulators look at it going forward.
Steve, government changes?
My feeling is that just look at what's happening in Scotland and Wales. I suspect there will be more regulation. I think there'll be some further tax and other changes to deal with some of the loopholes that will inevitably be created in some of the changes that they've made. The government made a commitment to increase regulation in England in the private rental sector. They're talking about mandatory redress for landlords. So I suspect there'll be a continual drip of changes going through, but probably nothing hugely radical because they don't have the parliamentary time to deal with it.
The majority of our landlords, at least in this room, want to stay in buy-to-let. When I said if you wanted to exit, there was, fewer people that put their hands up. If I was to ask each of the panel succinctly to give me your best tip for survival, what would it be? You've each got no more than 60 seconds. Who would like to start? Paul.
Focus on yield. Yield's a lot more important now in the current market, but also not just yield, growth, and a balance of the two. The old strategy of just investing to break even, thinking you'll get growth, you're generally in London and the South East, doesn't work anymore. You need a profit buffer there to account for these extra taxes. You need a profit buffer to be able to borrow money. So make sure that you've got a good yield from your portfolio across the whole portfolio, not just on the ones you're buying. And a lot of people are going to need to change their strategy away from buying, as we're in London now, around the corner from home, where you're getting bad yields, to buying in areas where you can get much better yields and also potential for uplift. Because, as I said before, I think there are other cities in the UK that have a lot more potential for growth over the next 5 to 10 years than London does.
Sarah?
Do your research, so understand where you're investing, why you're investing, what you're hoping to get from it. Get help from a specialist. If you don't know a specialist, there are several in the room out there, so go and speak to them. Mortgages for Business has a stand out there, and they're a very good advisor who I do a lot of work with for the MailOnline. They're brilliant, so I'll be able to at least put you in the right direction, as well as Nova and Shawbrook. Finally, I would say diversify. It's the oldest rule in the book, but if you are putting all of your investments in one basket, then that's probably not a brilliant idea. So make sure that if you are staying in buy-to-let, you've also got an adequate pension and you've got some other investments as well, just because markets have ups and downs. So be prepared for that.
What would be the other investment? Do you recommend gold or just What would be the other investment? Do you recommend gold or just
I am not a regulated investment advisor, so I would never recommend anything. But I would say a balance is a good thing. Okay. So have a pension, have stocks and shares ISA, have some property by all means, but yeah, make sure it's a balance.
Tony, thank you, Sarah.
And I was really going to that.
Oh,
okay, so
Briefly.
accept that you don't know what you don't know. Runs a business, proper business, have a business plan and an exit route. So why am I doing this? Toilets and toilets are hard work. Come to my presentation at 12:10. Come to our stand.
Is it here, your presentation?
In here.
Yes. And Paul, you've got a presentation?
I have two. I've got one at 11:30 across the hall, and I've got another at 1:30.
Fabulous, and it's all in your brochure. Steve, and then Gavin, your top tips?
Well, I just think it's important that landlords don't exit the market. I think you make a huge contribution to meeting the housing needs of the country, and
That's very
that's an
good.
important point. My key point really, given all the changes that are going on, is just make sure that you've got access to professional advice.
And Gavin? Please don't care at the moment, or Gavin?
I think whenever there's diversity, there's opportunity, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm forever the optimist. I think you need to look at your strategy, get the right advice. I think that's been key from today. I think looking at other options, be it the asset type. So So will it be commercial, not just residential, focused a lot on sort of residential buy-to-let? There's lots of other opportunities for creating value. That would be my tip. And if you are looking further afield, and Sarah touched on it, you really need to know the market where you're going to and why you're going to invest in them. Everyone's looking at HS2, around Birmingham, for example, that's sort of a bit booming at the moment as well. So just making sure you know your market and getting to understand the local market. You know, tenancy caps, rental caps, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the panel, but what I do want to say to you is don't forget to fill in your feedback sheet. We have got guys getting over that are going to collect those from you as you exit. I would say to you all, use this as your opportunity for the day to stay here for the whole day if you can and connect with the many experts that are not only here on this panel, but are in the exhibition hall. You owe it to yourself, and as Tony said, what was that quote you said? No to accept that you don't know what you don't know. We're a landlord family here today. Approach the exhibitors, and I wish you well in building your portfolio. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's show Tony Gimple from Less Tax for Landlords, Steve Harriott from Tenancy Deposit Scheme, and Gavin Seahoe from Shawbrook